Hello, Wilson. And we're just going to give it a few
Hi.
minutes for folks to join.
Hi. I think when I joined using my phone, so the first few seconds I couldn't hear anything. So luckily actually I attached my the speaker in time, so I could hear what you said. So
Well, it sounds like your audio is working pretty well now. Thank you.
yeah. But when I joined, I couldn't hear anything. So that I need to make a selection, select connect to my speaker and also my microphone. So whatever sometimes I miss some of the words you guys said in the very beginning.
You haven't missed much. We there has been nothing going on just yet.
Okay. So let's wait for other guys to join.
Indeed. Give him a few minutes. I know Joe's going to be a couple minutes late. And looking at the agenda, it looks like James had some topics, but I think James is going to be out sick today, unfortunately.
It's I think I don't know if you guys have had holiday yesterday. So from my side, it's long weekend, so a lot of people went out.
Yeah, it was a long weekend. Some folks were on vacation. I know James was out yesterday. He was I hopefully didn't pick up anything too bad during his travels.
Yeah. Let me open the document.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, David.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, Wilson.
Do you have holiday yesterday? You're in Vancouver right now, right? Do you?
No, I don't think Microsoft has holiday yesterday.
Oh, I see.
No, but it was a observed federal holiday in the United States.
Yeah.
Not for Canada.
Okay.
All right, let's give it till 5 after the hour, and let's kick off. We might have a small group today.
That's fine. I started going back to the gym again.
Yeah, how's your neck?
It's been fine. I'm doing squats today, so leg day, not putting too much pressure on my neck.
Good, man.
Although it has to hold the bar, but it feels fine.
Well, good
I can squat 205 pounds.
You know what? This is recorded, so you're going to be recorded for posterity. Squatting 205 pounds. So
You'll be now.
All right. How about we get it kicked off? This is June 20th, 2023. And we are in the Containerd Run WASI meeting. This is a sub-project in the CNCF, and we follow the CNCF Code of Conduct. So that means be kind to each other, treat each other with respect, and make sure everyone has a chance to speak and express their views. My name is David Justice. I will host this meeting, and if anybody is interested in note-taking, please feel free to mark yourself on the Google Doc, and we'll get started. All right, so reoccurring topics. I don't see we have anything in there other than, actually welcoming any new folks. Anybody out there that wasn't with us in previous meetings that would like to say hello?
Yeah, hello. Hey, so I'm Sayam Pathak. This is my first, actually the first Run WASI meeting, but I have been in the WASM ecosystem, and people kind of know me in the WASM space. I have been dwelling around. Recently did the WASM Wave in India, where myself and the Fermion team who flew into India. We went on a 4-state tour discussing about WebAssembly and all these. And I also, showed the Runwazi. So my talks were mostly into the cloud native side of WebAssembly, where I talked about the Runwazi, the Shims, how they work with Docker, how they work with Kubernetes, and showing the demos and stuff. So it's been good. I saw the tweet and I jumped on the call. So to meet you folks. And I really like the Runwazi project and the KWasm project, and I want to kind of be part of them, and hopefully make sure they are going the right direction. If things are not working out, see where things are not working out and try to help in any way possible, which is there, because I think Wasm and cloud native angle is pretty interesting. And that itself, more and more we'll see the cloud providers moving to the angle of providing the Wasm node pools. Like AKS is already doing that, and all the other players are seeing the potential, and they definitely will be moving sooner or later in the same direction of having these. And Shims makes perfect sense, right? Since like you can do it in your existing clusters, you can do it on your new clusters. So there are ways to make it possible. And good to see you folks as well. And by the way, I didn't tell, like I'm working at Civo. So Civo is also a cloud provider. So I work there as a director of technical evangelism. And yep, I'm a CNCF ambassador, and I also run my YouTube channel where I teach the latest cloud native technologies as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Sam. Welcome. And I saw a lot of those tweets from Radu and Matt, and I was totally jealous. They looked like there was a lot of good food, a lot of great fun, a lot of awesome tech. So glad to have you with us today. If you're also interested in the overlap of CNCF and WebAssembly, there's a WebAssembly working group that has
I'm part of
recently spun
that.
up.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
fantastic, awesome. I was it's like 1 hour before this meeting. I'll post some details in tweets or something like that a little bit later. Okay, so let's see. Milestone review, we'll do that at the line end if we must, or actually for short, maybe we'll just have a quick day. And then agenda for next office hours. Okay, so James is we move on to open discussion. James J. Stuyvesant is unfortunately not with us today. He is out sick, so he will not be able to give his update on OCI artifacts. And what we'll do is we'll push that on to our next meeting. I do suggest that if you have an opportunity, go take a look at the agenda doc, take a look at those pull requests. They're really cool. So basically what James did is he took WebAssembly modules packaged as OCI artifacts and made some small changes to Containerd to allow them to be pulled down as images, and then the Runwazi shims would then use those artifacts and run your WebAssembly modules. This is really nice because what this does is it actually provides us the ability to create non-OS dependent images where it's just the WASM, and we don't want to consider like you could have one image that runs the same on Linux, on Windows, on all the things. That's kind of the promise, right? You run WASM everywhere and you write it once. Anyway, I'll leave it up to James for the next time around. Hopefully didn't steal too much of his thunder, but it's really exciting work and I hope you all get a chance to check it out. Next on the agenda is Joe. Joe, would you like to give us an update on WASM Time Yuki integration?
Yeah, of course. So I started working on adding Yuki integration into the WASM time chain just to be consistent with the current WASM Edge implementation a week ago. So I started that work last Monday, and I got it working on last Tuesday and had a draft PR. Then I found out that there are a lot of shared code in between Wasm Edge shim and Wasm Time shim. So I figure it might be great to just having a common crate for both of the shims. I haven't done that refactor. I haven't complete that refactor yet. So the current PR is in draft stage. Oh, by the way, I'm going to send you a link to the draft PR I'm talking about. All right, paste the link in the chat. And what I want to show you is a demo showing that the Wasm Time chain actually works, because why not? Right. Hope everyone can see my terminal here.
Yep.
Great. So I'm just going to go ahead, and I'm currently in the run Wasm chain in my own branch, Wasm Time Yuki. I'm just going to make build to build the project and install that binary into my path. I'm going to enter my password. All right, and then I'm going to use CTR run. So this is going to run a container in containerd that uses the Wasm Time shim. If you're familiar with the run WASI already, this is familiar, and it's going to use the WASI demo app image. And here we go. Got the IO output working and the container is running, and it's exactly the same output, so there is no surprise here. What demonstrate is that I completely rewrite the Wasm Time shim to use Yuki APIs. All right, I'm just going to kill that. All right. So that's all I want to show in the demo. If folks are interested, I can go into the PR itself and talk about some things some learning lessons that I found surprising or useful. Shall I go ahead?
Yeah, sure. I think that would be nice to hear.
Dev, you have a question or?
Yeah, before you go deeply into the PR, can you explain why you would want to do this? Like, why are you adding Yuki's support? Like, what's your motivation there?
So the most useful thing Yuki is a crate called lib container, and that lib container has comprehensive OCI coverage that has, C groups, devices support, which we don't have in the previous Wasm Time shim. So it adds more support for the whole OCI stack, and that's the whole point. And it's also making a lot of, actually the integration, the implementation of the shim much easier just by invoking the Yuki APIs. That's the whole idea. Well, in addition to that, there is another task I'm trying to achieve, which is in parallel to this work. And that task is to be able to run normal container and Wasm container side by side. Well, when I say Wasm container, it's a container that still a normal container but has the Wasm binary in it. And Yuki has this executor concept that allow you to have multiple executors in a shim, and it can invoke one by one, depends on some conditions, or basically there is a test function saying if this image satisfies some conditions, then use this executor, otherwise use another executor. And you can imagine that we can verify if this is a Wasm image, then we use the Wasm Time shim or the Wasm Edge shim. Otherwise, we trigger Yuki's default executor, which is a Linux container executor. That's the idea. Do I answer your question, David? Great. All right, I think I got 1 vote for showing the code. So I'm going to go ahead to show my Chrome. All right, so what you are seeing here is the link I paste in the chat. It's called Use Yuki Sleep Container APIs to implement Wasm-Time Shim. Well, the first thing I found surprising is that if I go to the files changes, I have to implement a executor trait for the Wasm-Time executor. That executor trait has functions like execute, can handle, and name. And this can handle is the condition checker I was talking about. Given a OCI stack and checks if this executor can handle this OCI stack. And right now I just return true always. But you can imagine if we have multiple executors, this condition can depend on what the spec is. Okay, so the first thing I found surprised is in the execute function, it's already in a C group. And that means it's already in its own namespace. And that means all the paths are different. And when I try to execute something, I'm trying to execute a Wasm binary using Wasm-Time. So I was using the /rom/containerd path to find the root fs of that Wasm binary. But then I couldn't do that because this is already in its own namespace. So what I eventually found is just to do the dot here. So the current directory is where the root fs is. And that's where I can find the Wasm binary to execute. And this also allowed me to pre-open this path for the Wasm-Time. So Wasm-Time can access those files in that directory. If that hopefully makes sense. David, you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Joe, for recognizing me. The pre-open directory. So that directory will have the WebAssembly binary in it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the running WebAssembly application will have access to its own binary.
That's right.
Okay, and that's actually the way it works today, as we've laid out the file system. However, that may not be how we want it to behave in the future. This is it might be, I don't think you're changing any behavior here, but calling it out is probably a good thing for us to then give it our attention in the future. You know what I mean?
What's the major concern here?
Honestly, I don't see a ton of security worry about it. It might be more that there's you would expect to start up your application and have a empty directory, or only the directories that you expect to be there. Let's see, Radu, Radu, can you think of other scenarios where that would be, desirable to have, not have the WebAssembly binary?
I think the main thing to keep in mind is as long as there is no import that we make available for someone to instantiate or start anything new on the host, the fact that it has access to the binary, I think that's fine. That being said, if there are scenarios where someone might want to actually have access to the binary, they should probably include it and have that as an explicit step rather than it being there by default. Sorry, Brian.
Brian, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, we also need to consider James's work in this case and how we're going to, I guess, preload the modules before we execute. Especially since I'm not really familiar with the Yuki exec model, but I'm pretty sure they're doing it in a separate process. So yeah, we'll just have to figure out what happens there, because in this case where we don't have the binary, where we've got a bunch of modules that we've pulled in from Containerd or whatever, like we don't really have a root FS, and we need to assemble that. But if we don't want the modules in there, then how are we going to execute it? All that fun stuff. It's just something to think about. I don't know if it's a problem or not, but
David.
Yeah, I think we end up having, here's our root FS, it's laid out, we lay it out, and then we have another directory in there that maybe is like the root of the WebAssembly, like execution, point. Not having like the actual root FS we're laying out there, maybe the modules and stuff like that. Maybe we have another directory within there that's actually where the module is rooted or something like that. And then we have the pre-open directories associated, because we're going to have modules, but we're also probably going to have some static content as well, or at least I would assume so, for some, say web applications, unless somebody plans on using a fully virtualized like file system. But I imagine naive users are probably going to want to include static content and not, a virtualized file system component or something. Ready?
Yeah, to your point, David. Yeah, I would expect to be able to include static assets that are potentially not included in the binary for various reasons. So having a specific root file system that we pre-open for the actual WebAssembly module context, I think makes a lot of sense. I'd refer back to the capability aspect of how WASI is supposed to work, and to explicitly grant access to pre-open directories and files. And I do think there might be scenarios where having access when the module would have access to its own binary. But to my previous point, I would expect that to be something that I would explicitly want, as opposed to having it there by default. And I do recognize that this might be a workaround that needs to be there for the time being, because of how Containerd creates a root file system. But I would consider for a future work item to not have that by default.
Would you say it's making you more comfortable by just getting rid of this line?
Not that line entirely. I would expect that my WASM instance would only have access to something that I explicitly granted it access to, and I think that's a comforting thing to have as a runtime executor.
Okay, I guess the next question I have is, how do you explicitly specify what files or directories you have access to?
Well, that's up to how you define the workload itself, right? Wasmtime lets you pass CLI flags. With Spin, you have the manifest where you specify that. So I would expect that a way that would let you run a WebAssembly module that would grant access to a WASI file system to have the capability of defining what directories files should have access to.
Yeah, we have args here, and that args might contain pre-open path. Is that what you're saying? And we can call pre-open directory on those paths.
Well, I think the question I have, and to be, I don't want to hijack this with this one question. So if you feel like this is, feel free to stop me. I think the main question is, how would one today define a file that would be accessible from the WASM instance? Is there a way to do that right now with the Wasmtime shim?
not today.
Not today.
I think some of the work James is doing is to define I mean, right now it just takes the OCI config, regular config spec. But would be to define a config that has that information. Maybe we just extend the current config to include that. That's in the image spec.
Yeah.
All right. So the action items I think I understand from the conversation is just to making some comments here, so we are aware of this in the future, but not necessarily change this right now. Is that right?
Yeah, I wouldn't change this PR. You're not changing the functionality as it is today, but this is definitely something we want to do in the future.
Got it. All right. Speaking of surprise things, the second surprise thing I found using the Yuki APIs is that in the root FS, the previous implementation only contains the Wasm binary, but now it has more. It has, a dev devices directory, it has a proc device, proc directory, a run directory, a sys directory. I'm not sure if those are needed, but I do take advantage of the devices when I was doing open standard IOs. Let's see if I can find it.
We definitely wouldn't want to put that into the rootfs of the WASM container. But having it available to the shim is certainly nice. Or to the executor.
Yeah, I was doing these 3 lines, which might not make sense. So this is to get the device standard in and make a WASI file and put into the WASI builder.
Hey, Joe, I'm going to go back on what I just said. In this PR, I think I would like to see a directory for the root of execution for the WebAssembly module. And then
Okay.
if you're going to continue to have that pre-open directory, have the pre-open directory for that, make a directory for that, the execution of the module, and that's your root of with the pre-open. That way, the module itself doesn't see these, and then the executor could end up mapping stuff into that space if need be.
Got it. All right. And the rest of it is pretty streamlined. Once I have the WASI context, I was able to add your linker, create a store, and then eventually invoke the function. Actually, this one just returns the function and invokes the function at here. And if we go to the instance.rs, let me just go to the file here. The start function here is basically creating a container, a Yuki container, and calling start from that Yuki container. And this build container is using the Wasm time. Sorry, it goes to the wrong directory. I'm not used to navigate the code in GitHub. Okay. Oh, that's the main branch. Okay, so here. Build container. It's using the Weisenheim executor, passing standard in, standout, standard arrow, and Weisenheim engine. So it builds a container, and in the start function, you just invoke the start function here, and then wait for the exit code. And all the other functions are basically one-to-one mapping, calling the Yuki containers API. For example, delete here, checking container exists, load container, and call delete for the container. And kill is the same, calling container.kill. And that's basically much it. All right, do we have any questions regarding that PR? I'm going to make that PR ready to review today. It's almost done. Some refactoring work going on.
Awesome. Thank you so much for showing us, Joe.
No problem.
That was a great illustration of how this stuff works, and thanks for walking us through. Let's see. Anything else we want to cover there? Any questions?
I think Radu left a message in the chat.
Yeah, so Redu really was interested in the OCI stuff. And fortunately, we're going to push that off to the next meetings because James isn't here. So I think that actually works out pretty well. And I'll make sure send some details over to Redu so he knows that that's going to happen. Or if you talk to him personally. I'll probably just throw it into the Slack channel. Let's see, that is the last item on our agenda. Anybody have anything else they want to cover today? No, that's all right. We can give some time back. Let's skip over milestone review until we get a little bit larger of a quorum for the next meeting. Okay. All right. And are we doing these weekly or bi-weekly at this point?
Bi-weekly.
Okay, so every fortnight we will be meeting on Tuesday at this time. So come join us again, and thank you all. Cyan, thank you so much.
Yep. I'll try to so last time I worked with Hedai and a couple of other folks in making the, I think with Zoho as well, right? In making the Wasm shim work, Wasm time shim work from the Runwazi shims in a bare Kubernetes cluster, like in a new Kubernetes cluster. I'll need to find where that setup is because that time it was not working. So need to test out things again if it's still the same situation, and then we can probably open some issues and see what works, what doesn't work, and where we need to fix some of the things. So I'll probably try to get that till the next meeting.
Yeah, totally. Let us know. And if there's anything, if you run into stuff and you want some, quick chat, drop in Slack and let us know. As far as like bare Kubernetes goes with the shims, Cluster API provider Azure actually includes them in the Ansible files that are used to build base Kubernetes images for Cluster API. If there's, I threw in that PR. I'm happy to help out if you have any questions or ping me.
Sure.
Cool. If anybody has anything else, last call. Else we'll move for lazy consensus to terminate the meeting. 3, 2, 1. All right, everyone. Have a fantastic week and next week, and we will see you then. All right. Thank you so much for coming out, and let's go Wasm.
I guess.
Let's go.
Later, Wilson.
Bye.
Later, Brian. Later, Joe. Cheers.